welcome to another episode, a special episode actually, of On the Capo podcast. I am your host, David, and we are reaching out to our brothers across the pond, and we have Taylor and Dan. If you are new, they will introduce themselves to you guys. If you're an Orlando City fan for ages, you know who they are. I've known these guys for now close to a decade. I mean, unbelievable, and I have learned a lot from them about the beautiful game of football. And I hope that you find this episode interesting, informative, and if you are not a fan, that you become one. And if you are a supporter of Orlando City, that reinforces you. So, Taylor, let's start with you. How you doing, guy?
Good, yeah. Good to be chatting Orlando City again. I'm good. I'm enjoying the off season. Still not over it. A couple of weeks on since the Eastern Conference final. Yeah, the season will soon come round again with all the off season mechanisms. So yeah, really looking forward to getting into it and looking ahead. Past is in the past. All we can do is move forward.
Absolutely. Dan?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to chatting some Orlando City with you guys. It's been a up and down season, more ups and downs, thankfully. But yeah, no, let's get into it.
No, absolutely. This is a particular year. We started basically in January, and we almost finished in December. So for the first time in our history, we pretty much had 12 months of football. I want to remind everybody that on the 20th, there's going to be the Super Draft, the college Super Draft. Uh, as a show, we're going to cover that. We're going to have a special episode after it. And on the 19th of January, our players are reporting back to camp. The season, the postseason basically is not what it used to be, like this 4 or 5 months of no football. That was very short. So, guys, without further ado, your impressions of what the Eastern Conference Final, which Orlando City lost at home 1-0 to Red Bulls, who were the eventual sub-champion of the season. They went on to MLS Cup, lost versus LA Galaxy, who now has 6 MLS Cups, the most out of any club in our club's history. Red Bull, a founding club of the season, unfortunately, on its second trip to MLS Cup, leaves empty-handed. So let's start with you, Taylor, since you're at the top of the screen. Then Dan, your impressions about how the night went for the boys.
Man, very proud, firstly, that we made an Eastern Conference final. When we joined the league back in 2015, it was always with the vision of contesting those kind of games. Really, they did us proud to go that far this season. I don't care that we played Charlotte and Atlanta, that, we're lesser teams. You've got to beat what's in front of you. And we did remarkably well, really, to make our first ever Eastern Conference final. But the lasting pain that I've not been able to let go of yet is we didn't score a goal. To not score in our own building, and have those ifs, buts, and maybes, those big regrets. You're always going to be devastated. Having played nearly 12 months of soccer, as you said, the season seemed to last. Honestly, like, having gone that far, the season seemed to be going on 2 seasons long. It seemed that long this year. And honestly, for me, last year I had a real gut feeling that we were going to go all the way. This year I did again. I really feel like, of all of the teams in Major League Soccer, we've got the right mix of, skill, hard, grit, win games in different ways. And the Red Bulls are a really tough opponent. I knew that. I was under no impressions that it'd be a really difficult game, but I did think we'd at least make MLS Cup, our first ever MLS Cup, and lose to the Galaxy. So I was one game wrong, but yeah, it's the fact we didn't score, really. And I've had a few sleepless nights thinking about that Facundo Torres miss. We'll come on to him, obviously, in the show, but that miss, the first half, great work from Tincho Ojeda in the build-up, and I feel like we could have been talking also differently if he tucked that one away. Carlos Coronel stood tall. He's been massive for the Red Bulls in the playoffs, and that was the moment I feel to kind of change the route the game went. But all in all, it was a horrible, horrible start to the year. If you would have told me mid-season that we would have reached our first ever Eastern Conference final, I wouldn't have believed.
Yeah,
I would have
man.
been led away by the men in the white coats. Like, what are you on about? No chance. So, credit to the team. It's not the first time they've been in a hole. They dug themselves out. They went very deep, and ultimately, I'm kind of a glass half full kind of guy. If I said that right, I'm glass half empty. I'm tend to be pessimistic, is what I'm trying to say. With my support of all of my teams, but all in all, when you think where we've come from in those early years of Major League Soccer, we're getting closer all of the time. Football clubs for life, as you guys know, and we will get it. We will get it one year. It wasn't meant to be this time. We move on. The 2025 will soon be here.
Ben?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, really. There wasn't a whole lot in the game as a whole. It was very nip and tuck. It was only ever going to be sort of one goal in it. I didn't watch it live because staying up late at the minute is hard. But it kind of, the beauty of watching it the next day, you kind of have the benefit of hindsight, and also you've had a bit of time to sort of process the disappointments. When I actually sat down and watched the game, I couldn't really argue with what happened too much. I know, like Taylor just mentioned the Torres chance in the first half, but I'm just looking at the stats now. We had one big chance, and then pretty much the entire second half was all one-way traffic for us. But we never really troubled them too much. We didn't create enough. So in terms of the balance of the game, like there wasn't sort of too much to argue with. Red Bulls weren't much better than us, but they took their chance when it came, and that was that really. So yeah, I was proud of the boys. Like I've got an interesting stat for you guys later, but I'll save it for later. Like Taylor alluded to, us digging ourselves out of a hole. It's a bit of a theme under Oscar Pereira, but I felt good. I felt good about it, as good as you can feel about losing an Eastern Conference final. I was proud that we got there. Didn't think we would for most of the season, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I felt weirdly positive, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And again, I know a lot of people are upset or disappointed that we didn't go all the way, but they're just paying attention to the trolls online that like, oh well, my team went all the way. Well, good for you. I mean, the league keeps getting harder and harder, and what happened 6 years ago not necessarily is the nature of the league in 2024. With
What I
that,
will say, David, just before we move
go
on,
ahead.
what I will say, like I said, New York Red Bulls took their chance. What I will say, I always look at what we could have done better rather than the referees. But just while we recap it, there was
Mhm.
that bottling from referee Rosendo Mendoza. Andres Reyes could have seen second yellow, should have received second yellow, really.
That's very true, my friend.
Played 25 minutes with an extra man. That's probably the only thing we can point to, and it could have been different on another day. But as I say, it's all water under the bridge now, and I tend to look at what we could have done better rather than jumping on the refs every game. But that could have swung in our favor, I have to say.
I agree. Football is cruel and unpredictable. That's all I gotta say. I mean, we hammered that right after it happened, and it's history now, unfortunately. And to steal saying from combat sports, never leave it to the judges. You gotta go and knock out your opponent, and we didn't. And congratulations to Red Bulls on their season. 2025 will start all over. So with that said, question for you guys, and we're gonna start with Dan. 2020 is the 2024 season successful? Was that a success to you guys? We argued on our show that getting to the conference finals was an achievement worth saying. It was successful, uncharted territory, first time being there, but at the end of the day, not leaving the season without a trophy, especially when we had Pride, who has done an incredible turnaround in the hands of Giles Barnes and Seb Hines, the Englishman who came to Orlando City, played for Orlando City, decided to make Orlando their home after they hang up their boots, and they have turned that club into a juggernaut. Not only breaking record in wins, points, supporter shield, or I believe is the NWSL shield on their case, and winning the championship. All that is proof that in Orlando City we can do it. If Pride, who were a dumpster fire, managed to do that, we can definitely do that here. So Dan, let's start with you, and then Tim.
Yeah, just before I go on to Orlando City, I kind of want to just touch on the Pride. Obviously, you guys know I'm a big follower of them. Haley Carter as well, from the front office, has done an incredible job turning that team around. Got an identity. They're just really great to watch. Just like really fluid in the football they played. Absolutely brilliant season. Almost makes me want to forgive Giles Barnes and Seb Hines for playing for Derby County, but yeah. So yeah, no, they were amazing, and if we could. I was dreaming for a little while that we'd have the NWSL Championship MLS Cup double. Don't think it's ever been done before, because I think I had a look, but the only team that could have done it would have been Portland. But yeah, that would have been a special bit of history. But yeah, in terms of Orlando City this season, I think it is a successful season. I think I remember the last time we all spoke. I said, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I said Eastern Conference semis would be successful, and we've gone one better than that. So in that sense, it has to be looked at as a good season. I'd normally go into these things quite ad hoc, but I wanted to have a look at a few stats before I came in, so I'm just going to look at something on my phone. So Orlando City under Oscar Pereira, obviously he's done a great job. Taylor alluded to it earlier. We dug ourselves out of a bit of a hole. That is a bit of a theme. We can't do a full season. The last two seasons we only really started in June. And so for the last 4 seasons, I'll read you the numbers. So 2021, it was a great start, but a bad finish. Obviously, COVID kind of impacted that season. I've not gone back to 2020 because that was just, crazy. But in terms of points per game from the opening 10 games of that season, Orlando City were at 2.1 points per game. For the remaining 24, it dropped to 1.25. 2022, similar sort of theme, 1.7 points per game from the opening 10. It drops to 0.88 for the remaining 24 games. Would caveat that with the Open Cup run. That, not a distraction, but it does have an impact. And then it kind of flips for the last 2 seasons. We start poorly and then we finish well. So for 2023, we started at 1.4 points per game from the opening 10. That improves to 1.7 over the last 24. And then obviously this season, we were at 0.9 points per game from the opening 10, less than a point a game. And then we obviously improved to 1.7. If we could just do that over the course of a whole season, we'd be in such a better spot. So that's going to be the challenge for Oscar this winter, is figuring out how to make it last a whole season. That is going to be very difficult because we are going to lose a couple of key players, I'm sure we'll go on to. But I think, in terms of the season as a whole, it has been a successful season. We kind of killed it in the first 3 months, going out of the cups early and Leagues Cup and the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then we just gave ourselves a mountain to climb with the Supporters Shield. Whereas I know the Supporters Shield is never going to be the sort of be all and end all for MLS, but I think we all agree that it's the mark of consistency, and it's also a trophy. So it kind of felt like the first 3 months of the season, exiting those 2 cup competitions. I say the Leagues Cup was in the first part. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head, but playing yourself out of Supporter Shield contention that early as well, you've eliminated 3 trophies straight away. So if we could just figure out a way to make that last throughout the season, also winning breeds confidence. So if you win in the regular season, it's reasonable to assume that's going to translate over to the cups. Open Cup, we might be in it next year. We don't know. But yeah, so good season overall. But there's definitely massive room for improvement.
Taylor?
Successful season in my book. Eastern Conference final. It's another step closer. It's another experience. It's another moment. A moment that passed us by ultimately, but a moment that this locker room, I fully expect Oscar Pereira to be in charge in 2025. Our roster is going to be 90% the same, I believe, heading into 2025. So what I want to bring up right now is really pertinent. I kept hammering it like a crazy person in every blog, in every write-up within the playoffs. I said this team under Oscar Pereira needs to keep their heads. They need to keep their discipline throughout this playoff. We did. And that's the mark of growth for me. I repeated it a lot. I really wanted to get that through to the players on whatever platform possible, because we've all suffered in the past, the red mist, and then you can't win games of football, especially knockout games of football. So really, really proud of how we navigated the playoffs. The fact we took it to 3 games against Charlotte, it probably should have been 2, the Ladero offside up there in North Carolina. But a successful season for me. No silverware to show for it. We obviously are hungry for more, as the Tifo said a couple of years ago. The Open Cup wet our whistle. We got our hands on some hardware and it felt amazing. And that's what we want to do. Oscar Pereira's sides do have a lack of ruthlessness, to be absolutely brutal about it. I mentioned the Torres miss earlier in this episode, and I go back to that because when you go that deep in the playoffs, the goals have got to go in. When you're on top, like we were for periods in that game, the goals have got to go in. So to build on what Dan was saying, we need to be more ruthless. I know we scored the most single season goals we ever had this year, which is very impressive. Something else you can point to and say, yep, successful season. So we know where the goal is. Couple of pertinent points here that need rectifying if we are to achieve what we want to achieve in 2025. Pedro Galese, first half of this season, was not Pedro Galese. I think he was AI. He wasn't Pedro Galese. He managed to rectify his form from the midway point of the season. First half of the season, where we threw it away, you're absolutely correct what Dan said, where we threw it away. We brought in Luis Muriel thinking Duncan Maguire was going to leave the roster. We had to, lo and behold, Ramiro Enrique relegated both of them to the bench, deservedly so, once he got his green card midpoint of the season. So essentially 2024 was a strange season where the strikers that you thought were going to make the impact didn't. As of right now, if the 2025 campaign started tomorrow, Ramiro Enrique would probably be the starter based on what he did this year. But we need to figure out what our best 11 is, stick with that and come out of the gate with it and stick with it. We need consistency at the start of 2025. I do think it's a bit of a loser's mentality to say, oh, we'll be better off out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But because you want to be in those competitions. I don't want to play Tigres. I don't know about you guys anytime soon. But the fact we haven't got that in early 2025, I think there's no excuses now. The scheduling of that tournament, you're playing top quality sides right at the beginning of the season. The fact we won't have that, and the schedule makers didn't make it easy on us with Miami and Atlanta on the road very early on. We don't know the schedule yet. We will do in a couple of weeks. But the fact we don't have that planted right at the beginning of the season, we should have everything we need to hit the ground running. I know Maguire's now out for 4 or 5 months, something else we will talk about later, but I want to see us stick with it. We've got to replace Facundo Torres, but I want to see us stick with an 11. Our roster's going to be 90% the same, and the challenge now is putting a whole season of consistency together. Heck, I mean, the way we finished the year, if we had 4 wins, I'm just looking at it now, Wikipedia, to remind myself. We had 4 wins by June 19th, just 4 victories in Major League Soccer. Not good enough. If we could finish the season, if we could start the season how we finished it, my God, we would have been putting pressure on the likes of Miami and, the guys up there. So that's the next step for this team. But successful overall, to answer the question. It's just another footnote on the way to eventually win an MLS Cup, because we will get there eventually.
Absolutely, and I cannot add anything else to that. Spot on the assessment. I have to say, for the supporters that have not made their way to Inter and Co. Hospital stadium this year, there's a trophy case right outside of the front lobby that you guys can see on game day, and it looks impressive. I have to say, all the trophies from the USL era, from MLS. Now, obviously, Pride is going to add theirs to that case. So, um, we are a successful club. Unfortunately, in the MLS era, like Taylor and Dan mentioned, only one trophy, which is the US Open Cup, which we hope that we are back at it. There was a boycott that most of us participated on. And I had a friend from Stevenage that came to the game against St. Louis. Unfortunately, I told him, said, I cannot show my face, say something, and do something completely different. It was a shame. He got to go. He was impressed with the beauty of the stadium, and he also understood the reason for the boycott. And he said that him, my friend Steve Gates, who from Stevenage, that we went to the game against Miami. They are nothing but nice things to say. To me, that's impressive, guys, because when we have people who are exposed to the greatest football that you can have in England, and they come and they take it for what it is. It's an American version of the game, but the passion is there. It was fun. They had a great time. Both of them bought jerseys. They put them on. I mean, the thing is that to round up the is 2024 a successful season. I think so. Coming from where we came from, 2015 to 2019, that was horrible. And for me, that I lived the success of the USL era. I was a cold shower. It was a lot of people look at the first game in MLS with Kaká scoring at the death of the game as something memorable and successful. To me, I was like, wow, what happened to the Orlando City I was used to, that will have 3-4 goals by this point. So, with that said, I agree with you guys. A successful season indeed. Now let's go to something that I wasn't expecting. That I was telling the guys coming on, because I was expecting a drawn out postseason, and we're getting anything but. So San Diego FC is coming to the league in 2025. That will make it 30 clubs even. First time we're even teams in years.
Yes.
So this is wonderful. And to comment on the Supporter Shield for a second, Supporter Shield used to mean something when you were playing all the teams in the league at least once. Now there's teams that we haven't played. We haven't played at home at Vancouver since 2018. So what does that say? There's teams that we haven't seen in a long time, or that we haven't visited. So the Supporter Shield now, it is what it is. It's just a nice trophy, but it's not what it used to be when you were the best of the best. So we had the expansion draft this past week, and San Diego chose midfielder Heine Bruseth, I hope I'm saying that correctly, a Norwegian that we brought in halfway through the season. We paid $1.1 million. The guy, my understanding was in the national team shadow, was playing consistently. We bring him here, and the guy never sees the pitch. I only got to see him coming out of the tunnel, kicking the ball around in warm-ups, and on the bench. And I have to say, I saw this comment on Facebook, and I had to share it because it was completely brutal. And if you allow me here, I will read it, because it's funny, but at the same time, heartbreaking. This is from Smokey Flares, and he says the following: 1.2 million for 0 minutes is diabolical. Dude got the ultimate fan package. LOL. I mean, I guess because he absolutely did nothing. nice guy. He will interact with the fans. Nice dude. A lot of people were very excited because we had an Icelandic player, a Swedish player, adding a Norwegian. All we needed was a Danish player, and we have the Scandinavian squad. And unfortunately, that did not happen. A lot of people were upset that every time they have this expansion drafts, somehow we always lose a player. We're only getting 50K in GAM, which is this make believe Garber box. So we lose the player at a loss, financial. Let's start with you, Taylor, and then Dan. What was your reaction? I gotta tell you, when I watched the expansion draft live, it was through the website for San Diego FC, and when they had like three fans, like said, okay, we pick blah blah blah, we pick blah, and they mentioned his name, and I'm like, what does that sound familiar? And when they show the pictures with him wearing Orlando City gear, my head just went to I did the Cobra of Defeat. For those that are watching me, that's the Cobra of Defeat. All right, guys, what do you think?
Headband Heine. We hardly knew him, did we? I mean, come on. It's a shame they couldn't take Luis Muriel, right? He was left unprotected. Man, we don't know what we've lost essentially yet, do we? I mean, who knows? He could be Deadwood at San Diego out there in Southern California, but if he's young, bags of potential. I remember writing about him, it seems 5 minutes ago, blink and you would have missed him. But if he turns out to be a useful addition for those guys, we've made a loss. 50 grand in Garber bucks, as you say. And yeah, we know just as much about him now as I did when we signed him. Ultimately, he was on the bench 7 times under Oscar Pereira. I know we were in the heat of trying to secure a top 4 finish. I know our midfield is established with Cesar Araujo and Wilder Cartagena, so it was always going to be hard to get minutes, but we were winning a lot of games towards the end of the season. So the fact he wasn't brought on for brief cameos, I did find it really, really strange, to be honest with you, because I know through watching interviews, having listened to podcasts, that Ricardo Moreira, Luis Musa, we run a really good operation in the front office player recruitment. So they would have done their research on this guy. Norway under 21 international, high ceiling, lots of upside. Where it leaves us now, essentially, having let Kuchevsky go, Felipe Martins, and now Bruceff going to San Diego, we're incredibly short in central midfield. We'll come on to Facundo Torres, who needs replacing, but now, I mean, obviously, we won't leave ourselves as short as we are now. Obviously, it's just the beginning to the off season, but the 1.2 or however much Bruceff was, we now need to spend more money, to get someone in there. So the expansion draft is what it is. They selected who they selected. The other thing for me with the draft is, we left 12 players unprotected, I believe. The maximum you can protect is 19, which we did. There's auto-protected guys like our homegrowns, but David Bracalo, obviously, as well, was left unprotected. And to be honest with you, he's the guy. If anyone was going to be selected by San Diego, I thought he was the one. When I saw him unprotected, I thought potentially he can go full international, played at the Euros. Again, we haven't really seen much of him. Schlegel got the job this year. So that was interesting. We'll come on to loads of other topics in this chat, but centre-back depth is another, is something I wanted to address last season. We did with his signing, but we haven't really replaced Antonio Carlos yet, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, interesting. But Headband Heine, it's not a great loss, is it? We move on. We'll find someone else.
Then,
yeah, I think similar to David, I'd kind of forgotten who he was. So when I saw the unprotected list, I saw Luis Muriel and David Bracalo, and Bracalo is a strange one, isn't he? Because I was really excited when we got him in, and it's just, he's been unfortunate with injuries, and obviously he's away with the Euros and stuff, but it's just not really worked for him so far. I've been a big critic of Rodrigo Schlegel, but I mean, to be fair, he's performed really well recently, so I've been made to eat a bit of humble pie, which I'm okay with. But yeah, Bruceff, I saw they drafted him. I was like, oh, who's that? And then I just completely forgotten about him. was such a strange signing. For for him to not even get on the pitch at any point, having spent quite a bit of money, it's not short change in MLS terms. It's just really bizarre, and we've taken a massive hit. Yeah, really, really strange one. I was quite surprised San Diego didn't pick up Luis Muriel, to be honest.
I wish
As
they
far
did.
as I know, I don't think they've. Yeah, as far as I know, I don't think they've signed a DP yet, and it's not really worked out for him with us. When I saw they'd left him unprotected, I thought that's probably perfect, to be honest, because we can just sort of cut our losses and take the L on that one and then move on. But it didn't happen, and they've picked up Bruceff. I mean, their scouting department must know something that we don't, because that made no sense to me. I've never seen the guy play, so I can't comment on his ability. The level he's played at, I don't watch, so I know nothing about him. But it was just really strange.
Yeah, to interrupt you there for a second, then people that have seen him in practice at Orlando City said the guy was smoking players left and right. That he had a deadly foot and all this other stuff. Uh, so to a lot of people that cover Orlando City, the Mike Ramajos and the Austin Davids of the world, they went on social media to say that this was shocking. And
Mm.
so, yeah, man, I honestly, I'm with you guys. We don't know. I hope that it's not another Giovinco. No, not Giovinco.
Bikini.
Martini, where
Mm.
that he was nothing here. We lose him in the draft. He goes to St. Louis and becomes a superstar, and then
Mm.
so much so that he's sold to Europe, lays an egg over there, comes back to MLS. So again, mystical. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dan. Are you done with your thoughts?
That was pretty much it, really.
Okay.
Just really bizarre. So, I mean, I can only assume they were waiting for him to settle. There's personal stuff probably off going behind the scenes, but then you don't want to. They've probably looked at him, but we don't really want to use a protected slot on him, which is kind of conclusive, really, isn't it?
No, that's true. And again, you never know what happens behind.
Yeah,
Yeah, you never know
yeah,
what happens behind closed doors or behind
yeah.
scenes. So I get that, brother. All right, we move on to the how our roster is moving on to 2025, and we have the Felipe Zaro contract, and he's not coming back. No surprise to anybody. Nice guy, met him personally.
Mm.
He was like making like $85,000. I mean, he was making what your average regional manager on any company makes. I mean, he just humble salary, and I believe that Felipe will have a future in Central Florida when it comes to football. Don't be surprised if you see him getting a position in the Orlando City Academy. You heard it from me first. And then you have Kyle Smith, who was re-signed. Kyle Smith, to me, an enigma of a player, a guy that works part time as a certified public accountant. A guy that he ran into a listener of the show at a bar, and they got to talking. And the most outrageous revelation that Kyle Smith said at that time was that he does not like watching football. I was like, "What? You don't?" He's like, "No, man, I like playing. I don't know." To me that was shocking. Gaston Gonzalez, a player that we had a lot of hopes on, that we did right by the player after he blew his knee. When his replacement was on the sideline, he just blows his knee. We pay for the operation, rehab in Argentina, bring him over, pay for rehab, bring him on. Last season, the guy unfortunately wasn't the player that he was in Argentina. I have to say that because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, the guy sucks." The guy in Argentina was worth the $2 million that we paid for him. We unfortunately sent him on loan to Nacional in Uruguay, and that loan has expired, and the player has been released. Maybe a lesson for us not to be super nice in the future. We pay for somebody, we take that player. We don't care what the home club needs him for. Tough. You sold something to me, it's coming over. I think that it's a huge lesson, and I'm not gonna tell you how I know, but the club learned a huge lesson there that nice guys in business do not exist. You gotta be ruthless. Kochevsky, it's out. Shocking, since we saw a few minutes of him in the first team and OCV. Uh, Mercado, who became our first option at OCV on goal, since obviously the injury that happened in the first team. He's out. I'm shocked on that one. Petraso, who went on loan to third division in Italy and came back a new man.
Mm.
uh, the release, and last Salim, who we got in the draft last year, who in my opinion was a good player. Release. We're starting to see, and this is my position, guys, that MLS Next to me is not the league to harvest talent. It to me seems like a step above academy, and I would
Mm.
like to see our guys to go on loan. And as a aficionado and becoming short, little by little an expert in EFL football, I have to say that I would like to see some of those guys in League One, League Two, or Championship, because if we can put them in USL, and we can put them in USL League One, then what are we doing to steal
Mm.
Taylor Twellman's thunder? What are we doing? Because I've been to several OCB games, and the guys there are the guys that I think that are gonna make the jump. I don't want to mention names because I don't want to leave anybody behind. But those that have listened to the show know where I'm at with this. I think that some of those guys will benefit going overseas, and some other guys that have already experience in international teams, they are gonna have an easier way to go to Europe. Petraso is a great example on how this young man went over there and improved his game. Not good enough to stay in Orlando City. Okay, fine. That's an argument that we can have till the cows come home. But
Mhm.
I think that it's time for some of our guys to go to better leagues. MLS Next, I'm here to tell you, it has a ceiling, and I just don't like what it is. If you guys wanna offer your thoughts on that, go ahead. Let's start with you,
Yeah.
Dan, since Taylor went last.
Yeah, yeah. I'd agree, to be honest. MLS Next Pro is a great idea, but and this isn't just an MLS issue. The step up, because it's essentially reserve team / youth football, isn't it? I've seen a few games. The standard is nowhere near MLS, not even close. And that's the same in most leagues, the development leagues and stuff. That it's a huge step up. You need to get out there playing men's football, uh, pro football. So I'd be in favour of any sort of link up we can get with clubs in other countries, Central South America, wherever, because I just think you can learn so much. As a human being, just traveling, you learn a lot, don't you? But footballers, you look at a lot of the most successful footballers in the world. They've all had like sort of loan spells in really random places, and they'll go back to it and they'll talk about it. Look, David Beckham's one. He had a random loan spell at Preston North End. Said it was like the making of him, because you're around men. Youth football and men's football is just completely different. So I think you're right to say that MLS Next Pro has a ceiling. I don't think it's a particularly high ceiling. I think it's great for what it's designed for, in getting minutes into people's legs, and for coaching staff and managers to look at players closely. But there's nothing compared to going out on loan and getting some good experience. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, quickly on MLX Next Pro. I think Dan summed it up there. I don't have too much more to add, other than the fact that I'm thinking, Mikey Halliday, Alex Freeman, Loyola, Thomas Williams. Some of these guys are homegrowns. They've been on the roster for approaching 4 seasons now. Those guys haven't really seen the field, have they? Those are the guys on our roster that could really benefit. I think we've got our latest link up is with Sporting Lisbon, right? I think I saw Colin Gusky and I think it was Tahir Reid Brown went over there just training. But But yeah, if we could get some of our guys, in more competitive leagues like that, getting minutes, it's a higher level of football for sure.
No, thank you guys. And last, the topic of the hour, Facundo Torres. Okay, and I'm gonna be quick with my thoughts so the guys can walk and let us know what they think about it. Personally, as you most of you know, and if you don't know, I'm letting you know. When Facundo Torres was rumored that he was gonna leave Peñarol for Orlando City, his father, Jorge Torres, contacted the podcast that I was producing at the time, Tiro de Esquina podcast, which was the only Spanish language podcast that was covering Orlando City.
Yeah.
A podcast that I missed because rather than having this huge audience, it was a window to Latin American reporters and shows. I mean, listen, I'm an engineer by trade, okay, and the how deep I got into that, it to me is outrageous, and the guys here know because I share information with them. And I am proud to say that we were the primary source of what was happening with Facundo and with Gaston Gonzalez, which later came on. Facundo came to Orlando with the goal of going to Europe. The reason why we got him was because in the middle of the pandemic, no club in Europe and no club in South America could meet the expectations that Peñarol had for to sell this young man, and also for the player himself. Facundo Torres comes from a middle class family, like all of us. I don't. In Orlando City, I haven't met somebody that is a millionaire. Just happens to be a fan. The working class folks. And all of a sudden, Facundo gets a $2 million signing bonus. He's making $2 million in Orlando dollars. When translated to Uruguayan pesos, I mean, the guy is a billionaire in his home country. So the opportunity to come to Orlando came. I am thankful for all the happy moments that he gave us, the trophy that he's leaving us behind. Players and managers come and go. The supporter remains. I tell this to everybody. I've never personally, I never put a name on the back of the jersey because I know that person's going to be here forever. I wish Facundo all the best. Knowing him, knowing his father, having gone to the airport to meet him. There's a video on YouTube that will remain probably the greatest thing. And I already erased the original on my phone, so that's it. That's that video. It's everything.
I love that video, by the way.
Yeah, that is gonna remain of that moment. Facundo coming, he appreciated the. It was like a dozen of us there, but he appreciated the moment. He wants to go to Europe. I felt that the game against Arsenal, the friendly, was a catapult. And I gotta tell you this: after the morning after, because I have a lot of friends in Stevenage that are also Arsenal fans, and Taylor, right? No shock there, because of the proximity of Stevenage to North London. And they asked me, who is this guy? We want him. And unfortunately, none of that materialized itself. Personally, the longer he stays in MLS, his value goes down. And he's going to a club that is going to be playing club World Cup, Copa Libertadores, and that's going to be a huge dressing window for him to go overseas. We wish him the best. I know some people are angry at the club, some people are angry at the player, and I take it as people who are new to football. You have to understand that the player is looking to his career. Personally, when I stay in a company and I feel, hey, there's a bigger opportunity, I leave, and I may leave great coworkers and great people, great customers, but I have to do what's right for me. Maybe they're offering me more money, and I finish with this. At the end of the day, Facundo will always be associated to Orlando City. Whatever triumphs, whatever glories he are ahead of him, people are gonna see that he came from here, and also is an opportunity for other young talent to say, hey, if I go to Orlando, they're not gonna be stepping in the way. They're gonna allow me to grow and then go overseas. That's why I felt the situation with Duncan Maguire and Blackburn was shameful. Shame of Blackburn. I'm glad that they fired that employee that 3 times screwed them over of transfers over clerical errors. Is outrageous. But yeah, that's my thing. We wish him well. I have no ill will. I know that Palmeiras first had the wanted to sign him. Then Cruz Azul in Mexico jumped in, and it was a done deal. And at the end of the day, Palmeiras is stealing him. Also, I found out that Porto in Portugal had interest, but do not want to go into a bidding war, so they just walked away from that. And lastly, his agent is the master of intrigue. He went on Uruguayan radio saying, "Oh, he's going to Cruz Azul. We decided because right now they wanted to pay him in Brazilian reals, and that currency is so weak against the dollar, we lose money. We'd rather go to Mexico where they were going to offer him to pay him in dollars rather than Mexican pesos." So, as you guys can see, none of that was true. Anyways, thoughts on Facundo Torres. Dan, let's start with you, and then Taylor.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing my Facundo Torres jersey. Pay homage to the. He's been brilliant, hasn't he? Just not get away from it. I also look forward to him signing for Nottingham Forest, because anybody that is decent for Palmeiras ends up at Nottingham Forest. So them and Corinthians seem to be our feeder clubs at the minute. Danilo and the Gustavo Scarpa were the last two from Palmeiras, so I look forward to that day. I think it's a good move for him. I wasn't convinced with the Cruz Azul move. Not that they're not a big club, because they are. I think it felt like a little bit of a sideways step, just in the sense of there's not a huge pathway from Liga MX to Europe for some reason. I can't think of too many players that have made that move recently, whereas Brazilian football is like kind of the in thing, isn't it now? Like Taylor, you'll know as well. A lot of Brazilian clubs sell to European clubs, and he does have the potential to play there. He is 24, though, I believe, so he's probably thinking, I probably need to get a move on. So if that's what if that's what he wants to achieve, he can probably achieve that with Palmeiras. Have a decent season there, and he can move on. Or they're a huge club in their own right. So if the European move doesn't work out, he's at a big club anyway. He's, like you say, Copa Libertadores. They're going to be in the silly FIFA World Cup thing, but which I'm not totally on board with, if I'm being honest. But yeah, they are a big club. It's a good move for him. I think I think the fee was $14 million. Tom Bogut was saying. So I think it's a pretty decent fee, considering I think we paid like 8.5. We've more than had the output from him, and then some. 16 goals, 3 assists this season. He's been great for us. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he goes there and smashes it. I think he will. I think he's a good player. He's got a lot of quality. He's great at finding those little pockets of spaces on the edge of the box. I think now that he's sort of had a bit more freedom this season to kind of roam a bit more, I think you've really seen that in his output. So I think as long as he goes there, plays his best, and he has that freedom to do that, he'll do well.
Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, what a player for us. What I'll forever be grateful to El Cuervo for is putting the team on his back at such a young age. It's a conversation we like to have a lot with other City supporters. Is Facundo Torres the greatest Lion of all time? I've been asking people on Twitter over the course of the last month or so, when he's been breaking the scoring records for us, single season, all-time goal scorer, stuff like that. He is really. I mean, I was there when we won Open Cup, and his brace, put the hardware in the vault, in the cabinet at Inter Stadium. It was Sacramento at the end of the day. We did struggle in the first half of that game. By the way, it was him that put the ball in the net, and really got us motoring in that game. So, he will go down in Orlando folklore for that moment and many others. Leaves the city beautiful